Brendan Dassey, Trial Transcripts, Day 7, page 88, continuation of testimony of Michael Riddle of the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. In this case, do you recall what items of the RAV4 that you examined and were able to either photograph or actually lift a possible print from? Yes, the outside of the vehicle, all those prints that I found there were mostly, majority of them were on the rear or the side of the vehicle. Those were all powdered and then photographed, preserved in that way. There was other items inside the car, a water bottle. I've got a list if you want me to read off the list. If you recall. I don't recall all the items on there, but they were processed inside the lab a little bit differently. The vehicle on the outside was processed in the garage. Obviously, I can't take that into my lab area, but the vehicles that I took out, excuse me, the items that I took out from the inside of the vehicle were taken back into the lab area and placed in a fuming tank where they were superglued and then powdered. I don't know if I don't think I had any of those photographed though, because I just lifted them. When you examined the exterior of the vehicle, in doing so, did you look at what would be considered obvious points of potential entry that might leave a visible or latent print? Well, obviously we look at door handles and areas like that to see if we can develop prints. I didn't see any visible in those areas except for on the back door. Of course, the whole vehicle itself was powdered because not all the prints would be visible to the naked eye. The ones that were visible appeared like they had been left in some type of a substance, whether it had been grease or something, because I think that's the reason they wouldn't lift. It had actually dried on the vehicle and I couldn't lift anything off of it. Before I leave this exhibit, specifically on the back of the RAV4, you can't see very clearly in this picture, but do you recall there's a spare tire or some sort of tire on the back end? That's correct, there was. And there's a cover, some sort of cover on that? That's correct. Did you note what appeared to be a swipe mark or some sort of a hand palm print type of marking? It actually appeared to be a whole handprint on the tire cover itself. The problem with that is, like I was saying before, this was really dirty, the back of the tire cover was, and rather than actually leaving ridge detail behind, that's actually a blank spot where they lifted the dirt up off of where it probably adhered to their fingers when they removed their hands. I did take the cover off and fume it in an attempt to get other prints off of it, but nothing developed. As I said, it was very dirty, and dirt is not a good medium for fingerprints. So you attempted to actually lift a print off of it. Unable to do so? I didn't attempt to lift in using lifting tape. I attempted to develop one. There was nothing to develop, so there was nothing to lift. From the photograph you took of that, you did take a photograph as well? The photographs were actually taken by Brian Werner, who is our forensic photographer at the lab. But yes, I had him photograph it first. And you had an opportunity to review the photograph too? Yes, I did. Were you able to find any sort of ridge formations? Were you able to provide any sort of a comparison from? There was no ridge detail on back of that tire cover that was suitable for comparison. Were there any what appeared to be clear indications of a hand or palm print on any other vehicle parts of the exterior of the vehicle? Yes, there was. The other palm print was on the rear of the vehicle. It's actually on the side rear. I think it was the driver's side rear quarter panel, almost right close to the back door. By pointing to this area would be in this area on this picture? Right, yeah. And again, was it your ability were you able to photograph that apparent palm or hand print? Yes, we were. Were you able to extract any sort of physical print from that? Yes, we were. And were you able to match that to any known sample that was provided to you? No, I was not. Now, specifically, in this case, you were provided with a number of family members of the Avery family, correct? That's correct. And at one point, you were provided with Brendan Dassey's, I believe it was fingerprints and palm print. That's correct, I was. Were you able to compare, or did you do a comparison of that print from the side of the vehicle with the known print from Brendan Dassey? Yes, I did. Were you able to make a match? No, I was not. I'm going to show you what's been marked, and that last one, by the way, for the record, was Exhibit 141. I show you what's been marked as Exhibit 144. You had mentioned that in the interior of the vehicle, there was some items that you attempted to lift the prints from. May have actually done so, correct? That's correct. If you can see, I'll provide you with a pointer. Oh. Do you see any items on the interior of the vehicle that you were able to obtain some comparable prints from? I believe that's a water bottle right in there I know of, and another one right here possibly. I think there was a total of 3 water bottles, and I did get some prints off of either 1 or 2 of those that I was able to lift. Were you able to obtain any usable prints from the black CD case? I'm going to have to refer to my notes if you don't mind. That's fine. Yes, I was. So can you tell from your notes then what exactly from the interior of the vehicle you were able to extract a usable or comparable print? Yes, from my notes, well, from my report, I was able to get them off of about 5 different items in the vehicle. For one, there was a crunchy granola wrapper that I was able to get a latent print off of that was suitable. One of the Aquafina water bottles that were in there, the black plastic CD case, which is right there, and another partially full bottle of Aquafina water. And from these items from the interior of the vehicle, were you able to match with any of the known samples provided to you during this investigation? No, I was not. And specifically, later you were provided with Brendan Dassey's prints, again, palm prints and fingerprints. That's correct. Were you able to match anything from those interior items with the known sample from Brendan Dassey? No, I was not. Do you recall at any time during this investigation when you were asked to assist law enforcement, were you ever asked to examine and determine if there were any prints on shell casings? No, I was not. So if I were to show you a box of shell casings, you would never have looked at those, correct? No. So you would have no idea if there were any available prints, either latent or otherwise, that could be drawn from those casings? No. I'm going to show you what's been marked Exhibit 82 on the big screen, and do you recall at any time during your involvement in the investigation having an opportunity to examine and determine if there were any usable prints from the item that's on the screen? Yes, the headboard was submitted to the lab and I processed that, and I was able to develop one print suitable for comparison and identified that one as being from Steven Avery. So that was the only print that you were able to find? That's correct. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 107. Do you recall at any time during your involvement in this investigation being provided with this Blackjack creeper in the middle of the picture? No, I was not. So if there were any prints, you wouldn't be able to tell us whether or not there were any there, correct? No, I never examined that item. Do you recall specifically what items were actually provided to you to look at? The only other one that was provided to me that I didn't collect myself out of the vehicle, I believe, was the headboard. So no leg irons or handcuffs were provided to you? No, they were not. The gun itself was not provided to you? No. To look at? No, it was not. This bleach bottle here? No. Okay, I suppose I could go through each item of evidence with you, and the answer would be you didn't look at anything else other than what you've already testified to? That's correct. And no known or no prints matched Brendan Dassey, correct? No, they did not. Attorney Freeman, okay, I have nothing else, Judge, thank you. The court, cross. Attorney Gahn, thank you, Judge. Cross-examination by Attorney Gahn. Do you do any training in DNA, lifting prints around the state, or for any law enforcement agencies? I do training in the evidence tech school. At times I'll go in there and teach latent print comparison and latent print development. And when you teach at the tech, the evidence technician schools, do you teach them which surfaces are more amenable to getting prints from than others? Yes, I do. I give them my experience as far as what I have and have not been able to get prints from in the past. And do you believe that the evidence technicians, after attending that training, are capable of making those decisions on what to send for possible print analysis? I would assume so, yes. Could you tell the jurors some of the factors that play into whether a surface might be a good surface to capture a fingerprint? Well, actually, it depends on two things. It depends upon the surface, and it also depends on the nature of the person's skin. Some people with normally very dry hands don't leave a lot of fingerprints. Or if they have very rough hands, let's say they're construction workers or brick masons or something, that's going to erode and wear down the fingerprints. They leave very bad impressions. The best surfaces that we have to develop prints off would be something that's very smooth, such as glass. Vehicle side was a good medium for it. The headboard, I was lucky to get a print. Wooden items usually don't do so well. Very, very small items are difficult because it doesn't leave enough of enough of a fingerprint pattern on them to be able to identify. We get syringes in all the time, and they want to get the top of the syringes to see if we can develop prints on those, and I have, but there's just not enough individual characteristics to put in that pattern area to be able to identify the print. I'm going to ask Detective Wiegert to just bring you up one of our exhibits that Mr. Freeman talked to you about, and what Exhibit 128. And I'd ask you to just look at, these are shell casings which were recovered from the garage of Steven Avery. Could you talk to the jurors a little bit about your opinion on the chances of getting fingerprints from an item that size, and explain the factors involved in that? I suppose it is possible. I have probably processed over 1,000 of these, and not one time have I ever gotten a fingerprint suitable for comparison. The best I've ever been able to do is maybe get a little bit of ridge detail on there, but it wouldn't be enough for an identification at all. Another factor involved is when these are shot, they get hot, and the heat isn't very good on a fingerprint either. So you have two factors going against them. One, the size of it, and two, what the heat does to the fingerprint. And are these examples of your experiences that you teach evidence technicians when you go to the technical schools and teach? Yes, they are. And this is what the evidence technicians at the local law enforcement agencies learn from you? Well, either from me or whoever happens to be teaching their class at that time, yes. And they therefore are capable of making decisions on what to send forward to the crime lab for analysis? Yes, they are. Can prints be cleaned off an object or wiped off? Oh, most assuredly. They're very fragile. They're made 98.5% water, so wiping them off, it'd be very easy. And when you examined the RAV4, Teresa Halbach's RAV4, did you yourself do the inventory of those items that you found in the RAV4? Yes, I did. And did you know that it was Teresa Halbach's RAV4? Yes, I did. And the fingerprints that you found identifiable prints, I believe, you testified to, on 2 water bottles. Is that correct? That's correct. A CD case? That's correct. And a granola wrapper? That's correct. And those are items that very well could have belonged to Teresa Halbach? I suppose so, yes. And she would have handled those? That's correct. But did you have exemplars of Teresa Halbach to compare? No, I didn't. She had no record on file. Does a time ever come when you make decisions on whether to examine something for a fingerprint, or maybe send it for a DNA analysis first, or maybe do a DNA first and some other test second? Do those questions come up? It comes up all the time, yes. Are you aware that, do you know who Sherry Culhane is? Yes, I do. She's the section head of our DNA section. And when you did the inventory of the RAV4, did you observe there were blood stains and blood stain patterns in that RAV4? Yes, I did. And do you know whether Sherry Culhane tested those blood stain patterns? Yes, she did. Now, do you know whether she determined whether the blood of Steven Avery was found in that RAV4? Yes, I do. I've seen her report. There was his blood in there. And Nick Stalkey of your office also issued a report that the blood stain patterns he found were indicative of an actively bleeding person, correct? That's correct. So is it fair to assume that Steven Avery was inside that RAV4? I believe so, yes. Did you find his fingerprints in the RAV4? No, I did not. So the absence of someone's fingerprints does not mean that the person was not at the crime scene, does it? Not at all. Thank you, sir. Attorney Gahn, that's all I have. The court, any redirect counsel? Just a few.